So it's Friday morning and the weather forecast said it would be cloudy. But actually it's sunny some of the time. And so I decided I'm going to Oita Castle, a Japanese castle, and I'm going to paint the cherry blossoms. So I'm a little bit late for painting the cherry blossoms, but that's because the weather has been quite bad this year, and there have been few days when it was possible to go out and paint. So even though the cherry blossoms have gone past their full bloom period, I'm just going to go and make the best of it. So this is Oita Castle in Oita Prefecture, and although there's no actual castle, there is a castle wall with some guard towers and a moat, and with the cherry blossom in bloom, it really does look quite beautiful. Normally I do a quick and loose sketch, but in this scene a lot of careful drawing was required for the guard tower, which has a lot of straight and curved lines as well as other fine details. But it is a beautiful subject and it was very fun to draw. There were also a lot of figures in this painting, so this also required a lot more careful drawing. Then it was time to add the first washes. I wanted to make this painting as light and delicate as possible, so I did a very simple sky with lots of white areas to suggest clouds. Choosing the colour for the cherry blossoms was very difficult. I ended up choosing a colour that was a lot pinker than what I saw. The reason for this was that I simply liked the colour I made a lot more, and it worked well in the overall painting. Then I painted the vibrant spring green foliage on the trees. The most important thing here was to get the colour right. The next most important thing was to create those beautiful rough edges that you get with tree foliage. The grass in the foreground just required a few simple brush strokes. And then it was time to paint the buildings. I kept it very simple, just a grey wash, but it worked out surprisingly well. Next, I added shadows to the trees. This is a bit tricky as the trees are very complicated, so I had to look for the basic shapes of light and dark. It's also really important not to add too much shadow, as this makes the trees too dark. For some reason, the brain always has this urge to add more shadows, which you have to resist. And then it was time to paint the figures. I tried to add a wide variety of colours with the figures. This is not so easy to do when you paint with a very limited set of colours, which is what I do. Then I painted the trunks and branches of the cherry trees. This was another tricky thing and easy to get wrong. It's important to closely observe the angles of the branches and how they appear and disappear amongst the blossoms. Finally, I added a few fine details to the guard tower and the figures, which help snap the image together. I used my liner brush for this, which is one of my favourite brushes. It's surprising how a few thin dark lines can improve a painting. The guard tower in particular required quite a few extra details. The final result though was very pleasing. So here is the finished painting, and I'm quite happy with it. It's got a lovely lightness, and I especially like the sky. It's very soft. So it was really fun to paint all those figures, and some I copied from figures I actually saw, like the man and woman in the shade looking at the cherry blossom, and the person with the umbrella. That was actually a woman but looks a bit like a man. But I think also the colours are quite nice, so it was really fun to do. The castle tower, guard tower, that was a little tricky because of the details, but I'm fairly happy with that. So there you go. So I hope you enjoyed spending this time with me here at Oita Castle, my local castle. And I think when you look at the foliage, it's absolutely beautiful, isn't it? And the colours are wonderful. The pink cherry blossom, then those light green leaves, and then we've even got the fir trees with the darker green. It's beautiful. And then the blossom on the ground, and then there's people here, sitting here, having their little lunchtime picnics. Wonderful. Very peaceful. Japanese people are often very quiet, and so apart from the construction and the noisy road, it's very, very peaceful. After my on-the-spot painting, I took a walk through the cherry blossoms. A lot of workers like to walk along this path at lunchtime as a brief escape from the noise and busyness of the city. Along some parts of the path, you get beautiful panoramic views of the moat and castle wall. In the distance, you can see the white guard tower that I painted. I walked a bit further along this path to show you this rather beautiful Japanese building. So I finished. I did a painting that I'm quite happy with. I had a lovely time out here. The weather is beautiful today. It was supposed to be cloudy, but turned out to be amazingly beautiful day, and the cherry blossom is so beautiful, and yeah, it's been wonderful. So I'm off to do a little bit of shopping now, and then I'm going home. After my wonderful painting trip at Oita Castle, I did the following paintings at home. So one of the benefits of videoing these painting trips is that I get some great images from the video footage, and that's what happened here. So I got this image of me on my bicycle, actually my wife's bicycle, and a very interesting bicycle too, and it was just a lovely image. So I did a line and wash painting, and on the very first attempt I think it worked out beautiful, which is always nice when that happens. Sometimes I have to do it again and again, and even then sometimes I don't get a good painting at the end of it, but this one worked out the very first time. And this painting has a lovely freshness, it's bright, the colours are very nice, and it's got that lovely transparency that watercolour is famous for. Sometimes my watercolour paintings can be a bit thick, to be honest, and a bit dark, but this one is the opposite of that, and I like it a lot. So I took my drone with me, and I got some really interesting shots of the cherry blossom. There's one photo that I particularly liked but it wasn't really of the cherry blossom, but the road next to the castle. And maybe in the future I'll have a go at trying to paint that. And then when I looked at the other shots I did, there was one that I thought that was particularly good, of a man in white shirt and black pants, and the angle looked very interesting. And so I had a go at painting that, and I added a few things as well, and I'm quite happy with the result. So I particularly like the shadows of the cherry blossom trees. I think that worked out really well. I think the figures are pretty good, and I also tried to do like a very, I'm not quite sure how to say it, but like a very play with the texture, with the path and the grass. So I did my best to make that look interesting, and I think I was very successful with that textural effect, and it really adds to the overall painting. But in the future I might have another go and try and emphasize that even more. And that'll be a lot of fun to do. But I'm very happy with how this painting turned out.